right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani here in the Fan Cave, joined tonight by Andrew Filipponi up at 93.7 The Fan, where we simulcast this program time to time, including tonight. And Andrew, first of all, let me tell everyone the number. Of course, it's 412-575-2600. Call us there. Hit us up on Twitter if you want. It's at KDPomp, at the Pony Express. This is one of the biggest lines I can ever remember in a Pittsburgh-Baltimore rivalry. I didn't look back all the way, but I got to believe if it's not the top line, it's got to be close to it. 9.5 points. Were you surprised when that came out?
It did not come out that high. It's moved up that high. It opened, I think, at 8.5, and it's gone up a full line. And that's a little bit surprising, too, given that Zay Flowers probably won't play in this game, and he is the Ravens' best wide receiver. And we know Deontay Johnson quit on them and is now in Houston. But this team is going into the playoffs on a 4-game losing streak, and I don't think that's happened since, like, the 1960s for a team. So that's just how uniquely bad this team has been lately. And other than the game Saturday night, the games haven't been close. So that's why I think we see this line. We've seen it in the playoffs with the Steelers lately, with the Bills last year and the Chiefs the year before that. That's just or 2 years before. That's just what's happened with this team, where they go into postseason matchups against teams that have MVP caliber quarterbacks and big win totals, and they are looked at as the ultimate underdog in these contests. And none of the games have been close lately in the playoffs too, Bob. I mean, maybe the final scores looked close, but the Steelers got into such big holes and such big deficits that if they did make it close, it was mostly stuff at the end of the game to pad their final offensive stats. Yeah,
you could look at all those previous games, including last year. The one against Cleveland, when it started with a botched snap over the head of Ben Roethlisberger by Marquise Pouncey, I think that was 21 or 28 zip. When you dig 28. That kind of hole, and this has been a trend here with this team, Andrew, and that's the next thing I wanted to bring up, how slow these starts have been. We talk about it seemingly week in and week out, and yet they started again against Cleveland the same way. Not only did their defense give up a 9-play, 73-yard drive, but their offense, once again, just did nothing. And to me, that is really, it comes back to coaching, preparation. The first quarter of the game should, theoretically be one of your bests, because you've had all time to work about what you're going to do. You can figure out your game plan at that point, what you're going to call right off the bat, and yet it's not worked that way with the Steelers. And even though, Mike Tomlin will say it doesn't define you, it certainly does at times when you can't overcome those early game deficits.
Yeah, they lost a game in Indianapolis this year because of that. They lost this last game getting in a 10-0 hole. They weren't able to dig themselves fully out of it. It's not just a thing in the playoffs. It really has been their story all season when they've lost games. They did not have an opening drive touchdown the entire year, all 17 games. We'll see if they can break that spell in the playoffs. But, yeah, you get down in the first quarter here, Baltimore with their running back, Derrick Henry, and with Lamar Jackson's running ability, you're going to be counting on them to beat themselves, which they've done in playoff games. But you've also done a bad job in playoff games lately. So we'll see what wins out. But I fully understand why the Steelers are such a big underdog here, because maybe other than the Houston Texans, there's no team playing worse football going into the playoffs than the Steelers.
Yeah, Houston at least bounced back with a win the other night. I know it's against a bad team, but so they got into the win column. We'll see how they do, and they're going to be playing an interesting game right off the bat against the Chargers, a team that could, make a statement, who knows, in this tournament as well. Real quick, I want to talk about Pitt basketball. We don't get a chance to talk about Pitt too much, but I think this is a good time to do it. Both Pitt and West Virginia are doing well. West Virginia's ranked. They beat Kansas last week, which helped them, of course. They beat Gonzaga earlier, a pretty good team. Pitt beat them, and yet they're not ranked. They got a big opportunity tomorrow against Duke. I like this matchup a lot, and I think Pitt can go into Cameron and give them a very good game, if not win, but it'll be good. I think a good game all the way through.
Well, we got to see what happens with Ish Leggett. He did not play the other day. If they get he's vital. I don't think you can win at Cameron Indoor without him. Now, they did the last time they were there thanks to Blake Hinson's all-time performance. So you're going to need somebody to get hot. I know that Jaden Lowe can do that for sure. But you're going to need other guys to chip in. Damian Dunn is on the comeback trail. So it's really a house money game. You mentioned it. They've already beaten West Virginia. They've proven in the non-conference that they can beat teams. The SEC is amazing is excellent. They beat LSU, which is a nice feather in their cap. So this is a measuring stick game, Bob, because there's not another ranked team in the ACC. You're not going to get a lot of resume-building wins in this conference because it just performed so poorly in the out-of-conference again this year.
Yeah, it's taken on the like of the ACC football conference the way things are going.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't expect that in basketball. We're due for a break. We'll take it at 412-575-2600. Call us with your opinions. We do it nightly here, and that's why we call it the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Back right after this. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night is PFF Pittsburgh Steelers. TJ Watt, 14 tackles for losses in 2024, tied for first among all edge rush defenders. And while he will make his case about Defensive Player of the Year, I got to believe that Trey Hendrickson of Cincinnati is probably the guy who's going to get it based on what he did this entire season. But in that game against the Steelers the other night, he took full advantage of Dan Moore and drew 17.5 sacks this season. And I don't think if you add up the rest of the people on their defense have totaled 17.5. I mean, he's been really, really good.
He has. I don't think he should win the Defensive Player of the Year award. I don't think Watt should either. I would actually give it to Pat Surtain in Denver as the #1 lockdown corner in the league, the way that their defense ended up Denver as one of the very best in the NFL, better than the Steelers. And so I thought he had a Darrelle Revis-esque season for them. That's why I think he should win the award in a year where no one really from the edge rusher position other than Hendrickson put up big numbers in. I just have a hard time saying a guy was a Defensive Player of the Year when his defense was so bad that it kept that team out of the playoffs and ended up with the defensive coordinator of that unit getting fired.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, although it was because of him that they gained steam and won 4 games or 5 games at the end of the year, too. He had a lot to do with that. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about, before we get to the lines, at 412-575-2600. You mentioned Denver. Denver not only has a good defense, I think they could be problematic in the playoffs for anyone. I don't know that I'm going to predict that they're going to go and beat Buffalo, but they can give them a game. And I think Bo Nix, one thing you say about Sean Payton, who took a lot of grief for when he first got to Denver and what he did with Russell Wilson, he had a plan. And he has really expedited that franchise quarterback, at least to this point. You look at Bo Nix and you say to yourself, that's a pretty good quarterback. He has developed quickly. And they did a very interesting thing there. And I think the Steelers moving forward, you know, these decisions about what to do with their quarterbacks, specifically to not only next year, but beyond, I think it's a little bit of a conundrum right now based on what we've seen.
It is, because of the way Russell Wilson has performed in the last month of the season. I mean, that 2-minute drill offense was abysmal. A guy that's been in the league for 13 years as a starting quarterback and been to 2 Super Bowls needs to operate that drill much better. That was one of Ben Roethlisberger's specialties. He was so good at it. We obviously saw it in the Super Bowl. And believe it or not, Kenny Pickett was actually very adept at it. That was probably his best trait as a quarterback. And I thought Russ, the decision-making was just atrocious and really cost them a chance to win that game. Now, the throw to Freiermuth was good, but other than that, I thought the drive was pretty much a failure on his part. So, Bob, as I see it right now, unless he has a really strong game against Baltimore and either wins the game for them or plays well, I'm ready to move on from quarterback again this offseason. And maybe Justin Fields, it's a chance for him to re-enter the chat, if you will. I would probably not sign him back here as the starter. I would want to explore other options, but I would prefer him over Russell Wilson if Russ has a rough game against the Ravens on Saturday night.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that, just because it's the way it ended. Knowing that he's going to be 37 next year, how much do you want to invest when you have a younger guy, if you're going to go in that direction, who I still think has more upside than what he's shown, but you'll see. And that's one of those situations that you chase it for a long time sometimes, and hopefully the Steelers can figure out what to do. Let's go to our #1 Cochran Go One Better caller of the night. We'll begin tonight with Gary in Bethel Park. Hello, Gary. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Raj?
Good.
Hey, Gary.
I just want to talk about Arthur Smith. I mean, you watch these games, and there's no imagination in this office whatsoever. Why? We have the best defense, or they'll call one of the best defenses, and there's guys running wide open in the middle against us. But do you ever see one of our guys running wide open anywhere? No.
The only time they throw that way is down the field to the sidelines, to the boundaries. You very seldom see stuff in the middle, or at least a variation of that, crossing patterns in the middle of the field, something set up as a pick, whatever the case may be. It's kind of morphed into a Matt Canada situation without the jet sweeps, Andrew. I mean, it just, what we saw the other night, I have no idea why on every single first down, for 12 of them, I think they ran the ball, and it was predictable. And then when Cordero Patterson got into the game, I think everyone, at least when we were sitting, talking, he's going to get the ball when he gets into the game.
Yeah, that was a really dumb decision to bring him in at that point when you had just produced a first down, you were in field goal range, and you were potentially driving to win the game. And then you're going to put Patterson in there, goes for no gain, and then commits a holding penalty shortly thereafter. I hate that he continues to shoehorn him in to these games. They don't even use him as a kick returner anymore, but they try to get him involved offensively, which makes no sense. I'm underwhelmed by Arthur Smith. I'm shocked he's getting head coach interviews. I don't think he deserves it based on how things went in Atlanta and then how things finished the year here. And Mike Williams makes a great play. Then he only gets 14 snaps. Van Jefferson gets 41. George Pickens had a horrible game, and George Pickens behaviorally is really embarrassing right now. But they got to find easier ways to get him the ball. There was a wide receiver screen on the first drive, and then everything other than one other drop was deep. Okay, where are the slants? Where are some more sophisticated routes, some rub routes maybe to get him open? I don't see any of that in this offense. Does that mean George is incapable of running those routes effectively? If he is, Bob, then he's nowhere close to being a number one wide receiver.
Right. And that's all it would take. Just get him the ball slant and have him go. The other thing missing is Freiermuth earlier in the game. He didn't get any action until really late in the game when they absolutely had to throw the ball. 412-575-2600. Let's go to Tony in Beachview. Tony, what's going on tonight?
I'm totally disappointed in the Steelers. I mean, it seemed like they weren't trying to win that game. Like you were saying, they kept running. They should have tried to throw the ball. And I'm sorry, but I don't like Russell Wilson.
Well, I mean, things have changed. It's funny how it goes, isn't it, Andrew? Halfway through the season, I think they're 10-3. Things are going well. People want to give Pickens $120 million. They want to give Russell Wilson whatever he wants. And now all of a sudden, people are withdrawing a lot of these things. That's why it's a tough thing, in the middle of the season to gauge. But over the total body of work right now, I certainly have questions about how much money Russell Wilson. Now, if you're looking for a bridge quarterback, somebody who can, bring along someone else who's sitting behind him, potentially, that would be a good role for him. But if I'm going to bank on him being the quarterback here 2 years from now, operating at a high level, I don't know if I could put that money in that bank.
No, you can't. I mean, look at the other quarterbacks in his age group. Kirk Cousins got benched this year. Aaron Rodgers is going out in a fizzle with the Jets, 4-win season, 40 years old. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, a little bit older than Russell, I get that. But when you're talking extension, you need to discuss things like what he's going to look like 37, 38, maybe even 39 years old. And I just think the same thing happened in Denver, where he was pretty good in the middle of last season. They beat teams like the Bills. They beat teams like the Chiefs. And then he closed out the season so poorly that Sean Payton said, we can't afford to get this guy injured and then guarantee his salary for the following year. So, you know what? I think we got to take Sean Payton. His opinion on quarterback, to me, carries more weight than Mike Tomlin's because of the work he did with Drew Brees and now what he's doing with Bo Nix. To have Bo Nix throwing 28 touchdowns in his rookie year, Justin Herbert's the only guy in NFL history with more rookie season touchdown passes than Bo Nix, who was the last quarterback picked in the first round of that draft, Bob.
Yeah, and he started slowly this year. The Steelers saw him early. He was not the same quarterback as he is right now. And even though Kansas City did not play their regulars, most of them in this game, 38-zip, I mean, he was outstanding. I think 26 for 29 or something of that nature with 4 touchdown passes. One more quick call before we go to break. That would be Rusty in Pittsburgh. Rusty, you're on. Go ahead. Rusty?
Yes, hello?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. I was just calling wondering why the Steelers can't start out with try to start out with a fast start rather than trying to start out with a fast start in the fourth quarter. It seems to make no sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we've been talking about it. Andrew, why not come out in this game and throw the ball 10 of the first 12 times? I mean, I don't want to see runs on first and second down. I think Baltimore would wait for that. I just don't want to see it. I want to see something different. And when they were going well in the middle of the season where Russell Wilson was playing his best football, they were throwing the ball a lot of different ways.
Well, they did against Cincinnati in that game, so I do think it worked then, but they were also one of the worst defenses in the NFL at the time. When they played Baltimore, when they had the absolute worst pass defense in the NFL here in Pittsburgh, they didn't really throw the ball that much, and they ended up only kicking field goals to win the game. Mm-hmm. Bob, would you give any thought to playing Justin Fields in this game on Saturday?
Not to start, but yes, absolutely I would. In fact, I thought he would have played this past week against Cincinnati. There were too many occasions that 4th and 1 right before halftime I thought was a perfect Justin Fields situation.
Yep.
If he's healthy,
I agree with
if
that.
the abdominal injury is better and good and he's in there, yes, why not? I mean, this is one of those all hands on deck moments, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to try to win, you got to have everybody ready to go, no matter what it would be.
It is, but when they tried to balance two quarterbacks playing at once, it blew up in their face in Cleveland. And that was one of the more costly games of the entire season. I mean, to me, if you're leaning or thinking about playing Justin Fields, maybe you just straight up play him. They won't. But at this point, what do you have to lose? You've lost 4 in a row and the offense looks terrible.
Yeah, well, I thought that game in Cleveland, though, to have him throw after sitting the entire game was a little bit much in the snow in those conditions. That's not exactly, that's a hard enough throw if you've been in there for the entire game. But, yeah, to your point, I would do it. I would make him available. I don't know how, make a package for him, just something that you could throw in there at some point. We got to take a break here. Paul, Rick, Sean, and Josiah will try to get you on in when we come back. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here live on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. Ken Rice is standing by at the anchor desk, waiting for tonight's 11 o'clock news. Ken.
Hey, Bob. Tonight, Mayor Ed Gainey's promising to help residents of a local apartment complex days after a deadly fire. Plus, a top official of Nippon Steel not giving up, visiting Mon Valley mayors, and Kristen Emery tracking the potential for more snow showers, all coming up, Bob, at 11.
All right, Ken, thanks very much. Josiah in San Antonio, Texas joins us right now. What's up, Joe?
Bob, hey, Andrew. I'm trying to be optimistic, but I'm walking my head down going into this game. I don't really trust anything. The offensive line is terrible. No receivers besides Pickens, and he's acting a fool. Arthur Smith is really terrible. And I just wanted to say this real quick, kind of on the bright side. I know you guys dismissed resigning Najee Harris because he's not as flashy as others, but I think the guy's durable. He's had 1,000 yards per season since he's been there. I would like to resign him to add with the combination of Jaylen Warren.
Well, first of all, Warren's going to get more money. They have a lot of other things that are going to command money. I'm not there. I would think Najee's going to move on, and I think they probably want him to move on based on the fact they didn't give him the 5th-year option.
And then we can start the Cam Scattaboo era here in
That's
Pittsburgh next year.
I like that dude. All right, Pony, always a pleasure.
So do I, Bob.
See you again tomorrow night. That's going to do it for us. We'll do it tomorrow, same time, same station, right here, KDKA Plus at 10:35. Have a good evening. We'll see you at 11 on KDKA.